The day has finally come to take delivery of the plants for our renovation project. Once you have the plants on site, make sure that they are watered and kept in a shady area until you're ready to plant. The reason for this? Plants can easily dry out in between the time they leave the nursery and are ready to be planted. All of the rocks are now placed in their final locations, and Forrest can begin to lay out the plants based on the planting plan. Start with the major plants, trees and large shrubs, then work around these with the secondary plants and ground cover. Pay careful attention to plant spacing to avoid overcrowding as they mature. Once you've finalized your design and planting layout, it's time to pick up your new plants and get them in the ground. October through April is the best time to plant most California natives, as this is an active growing season for them, and it allows them to begin sending out roots while the weather is cooler. Earlier in the renovation project, we showed you how to use sunshade patterns and the soil analysis to lay out hydrozones based on microclimate and soil conditions. You will have conducted a soil test to determine the soil texture and chemistry, and a percolation test to determine how it drains. Planting Californian and Mediterranean natives is much like planting most container-grown plants, but it's worth noting a few important points. Remember, the plant has been growing in this container and relies on moisture from this small root ball for all of its moisture. What this tells us is that even after planting, we need to make sure that the root ball is kept moist. If you take the plant out of the container, you can see that most of the roots are around the edge of the root ball. The part where the stem meets the roots is called the crown. It should remain about a ½ inch above the soil level after planting to prevent disease rotting the stem. Note the flat base of the root ball. Dig a hole twice as wide as the container and as deep as the height of the root ball. Place the plant into the planting hole to test the depth. Remember, once planted, the top of the plant, not the top of the container, should sit above the surface like this. About a ½ inch maximum, but the roots should not be exposed. Adjust the depth of the planting hole by adding or removing soil. If you need to add soil, tamp it down lightly after adding it to make up a flat surface at the base of the hole and to minimize the chance of the root ball setting too low after planting. Place the root ball in the hole and gently settle it so that the base of the flat bottom of the root ball rests on the soil. While holding the plant in place, backfill the soil around the root ball little by little until the hole is full and there are no air pockets next to the root ball. Some soil may be left over around the newly planted plant. You can spread this around between the plants, but be careful not to let the soil cover the crown of the plant. On sloped areas, it may be necessary to create a basin around the plant to prevent the water from running off and eroding the soil from around the root ball. Notice that we did not add fertilizer at this time. A light dressing of a nitrogen fertilizer can be added in the spring for those plants that need it. Water the plant immediately. Plants will continue to lose moisture through the leaf and stem surfaces and need to replace it with water taken in through the roots. It's best to water a second time once the water has drained from the surface. If you're planting a lot of plants, water the plants as you go. It's important that you water the root ball of the plant and the immediate surrounding area. Add an appropriate mulch, organic or inorganic, to conserve the soil moisture. When you're using organic mulch, keep the mulch well away from the crown of the plant to prevent disease. It can take 2 or 3 years before the new roots can burrow deep into the soil, so water is needed by hand or with automatic irrigation during this period. Check the soil below the mulch regularly to see if water is needed. Check both the root ball and the surrounding soil. Remember, plants can dry out even in the fall and winter when many natives will be actively growing. Once all of your new plants are in the ground, make a list of your plants and note the key maintenance actions and recommendations for each plant, including watering, feeding, and pruning. This will help remind you and simplify the maintenance of your new landscape.